Hello, welcome to Quackalope. Thank you for being here. Today we're having a conversation around AI art. AI art in...
Art!
AI art in the, art realm, I suppose, and in the realm of the things that are art, and also in the board game space, because that's what my channel is about. My channel is about board games and nerd culture and comic books and all of these things
that AI is borrowing from and kind of effectively stealing and amalgamating into an image for your enjoyment and pleasure.
This is John DeCampos.
Hello.
He runs a publishing house, a publishing studio, a little indie board game content creation space called
Terrible Games.
He makes terrible games. I think that's right. Isn't that the catchline?
Well, the catchline is terrible games. Turns out they're pretty good.
I like that. That's great. You're up here because we have a brand new game called Black Mold that we're going to be featuring here on this channel. Basically, we will give you a 30-second pitch at the end of the video on this game, but we're not going to spend too much time marketing it now, just so you know there's an excellent game called Black Mold on the way, and you should totally check it out. AI art! Why are you so pissed off?
Okay, hold on a second. Let me give a little bit of a background on myself.
Are you going to establish your acumen as an artist?
I am going to do that, actually.
I appreciate that. I respect that.
I'm a person who has been working in the art world for about 20 years. I'm a musician. I'm a visual artist. I have done work in theater. I am a founding member of the Baltimore Rock Opera Society. I collaborate with lots of different artists that do everything from costumes to props to composing music to album covers to posters to apparel design. My whole world is art, okay? And that journey has led me to becoming an indie board game publisher, and it's very thrilling and it's very fun, and I love the space. And recently, there has been this slightly threatening, slightly foreboding, robot-driven incursion of quote-unquote art coming into the indie realm.
So if you're going to establish yourself and your acumen, let me establish myself and my acumen.
Please, by all means.
I have been genuinely interested in what AI art is and absolutely clicked on articles and stuff talking about it. I even followed, there's a Kickstarter that just launched where it's the first comic book or something along those lines where all of the art generated
No, comic books are about punishment. You punish yourself and you sacrifice yourself to make a comic book. You do not type words into a prompt and get a comic book after.
AI art. I also am currently likely going to sign up for one of these AI art subscription services so that I can figure out what it thinks a Quackalope looks like.
Oh, that'll be fun.
If any of you have an AI art subscription service, please run Horned Duck through that, or whatever variation of those words you want, because I want to know what the internet thinks I am.
Yeah.
That being said, I haven't really thought about it much. I haven't thought about it in terms of, other than...
It's a conversation.
Other than, I do think some of the stuff that it is creating is beautiful.
Do you think that's beautiful?
I clicked on this one because it's full of bright colors.
Okay.
But I do think some of the stuff that AI art is creating is interesting, is twisted, is macabre.
Okay.
Some of the stuff has absolutely been eye-catching and engaging in a way that you might not expect.
Fine. I'll grant you that. Is it art?
I would venture to say that some of its applications absolutely is art. It depends on what you think art is.
Which is extremely subjective.
It's kind of like the ruling on what you think pornography is.
Or what you think good music is.
You know it when you see it.
Have you ever been to a noise show?
Sure.
You ever seen somebody sit down with some pedals in a weird computer or handheld gaming system and just make buzzing noises and basically
Do you consider that music?
It is because of the intention.
Is there not intention in this? In the design, in the algorithm, in the structure and framework that created a system to then create?
There is intention in the simple fact that the only way these images are generated is from a human deciding to give it basic parameters for which the image is generated. However, I personally do not view it as art.
Okay.
And the reason for that is that it is not focused through a lens of experience or intention working in tandem, and it is not going to evoke anything about a person's life and have some sort of transferable, empathetic moment with anyone, because computers can't fucking do that. They can't. So they can be interesting, and they can even be applicable for a board game, perhaps, or for your album cover, maybe, or even your show poster. However, I think on a fundamental level, if you unpack it, if you think about it, because a human being, their suffering, their trauma, their happiness, their dreams, all of the things that culminate when you sit down and motivate yourself to sit in front of a canvas to create a vision that has been living in your head for weeks, these sides of the process do not transfer onto the page when you make an AI-generated images, because they simply cannot. The AI is not designed or capable to do these things. It might be one day. You might be able to type into an AI generator, raccoon cowboy with guns for arms, and you will get an image that is that exact thing, and maybe it'll look cool. Will it be art then if it's actually like completely airtight and is that exact image as you described? I don't know. But right now, in the indie space that I'm in, I see a lot of creators, because unlike a good majority of the indie creators that I interact with, I am probably an exception to the rule where I am a visual artist, I'm an illustrator, and I have used my skills to make board games. Mm-hmm. I save a ton of money doing that because I'm not paying an artist, I'm not commissioning anybody to do that work for me. And I've heard time and time again from all the indie creators, hey, I got a really great card game. It's 128 cards. Every single card has a unique illustration on it. My game will be really hard to bring to market because I'm going to need a $20,000 art budget for unique illustrations on every single card. Mm-hmm. I understand that. I get it. So if you want to use AI art to bring that game to a point where it is aesthetically pleasing enough to show to a publisher, if it is a playtest copy, I get it. And I'm actually very, very excited to see what will happen when we get that publisher that says, hello world, we're on Kickstarter with the first all AI generated board game. Let's see what happens. I'm not going to be that person, but if you're that person, you're watching, I will see what you do. I will follow your campaign very closely because I'll be interested to see what happens.
So let's scroll it back a little bit. Let's start on the conversation of what AI art is. Yeah. From my understanding, as someone that's just been an observer, it's an algorithm or a sort of the same kind of technology that allows people to do like deep fakes and stuff like that, where you're entering in a certain queue of words, and instead of doing the work of editing and graphic design and combining and merging, you're entering this into a program, like you're saying horn duck, yellow, abstract against the sunset, and it is grabbing things from the internet that have those terms in them and then saying, what if we photoshopped this into a merge? It's sort of like when I was a photographer, there was a point where I had to take 6 photos and stitch them together to make a panorama. And then Photoshop got good enough that at a certain point I could take 6 photos and I could ask Photoshop to put them into a panorama. And then at another point, Photoshop got good enough where I could take 6 photos, ask it to stitch them into a panorama, then ask it to correct its own mistakes and then color grade the photo for me. And that sort of progressed to a point where, like, at one point I needed the skill of hand-stitching photos.
But it's about saving time.
Yeah, sure, that would be.
It's about efficiency, right?
That would be about efficiency, absolutely. And about accuracy. Sometimes it does a little bit better job than you can with a little pen and a brush. Sometimes.
So I think in that particular example, it's a little bit different because the foundational input of information that's being granted came through the lens of a human eye. Your sensibilities, the lighting choices that you took advantage of, all of these things are playing a factor. Okay. With these AI-generated images, and some people have already sort of stated this, I'm not sure how accurate this statement is, but it's kind of just theft. And here's why. All of these images, as taken by the algorithm, are things that exist on the internet. The permissions as to what assets are being amalgamated into this final AI-generated image,
sure,
there are no permissions being granted on any of this.
Okay.
If you're a famous artist who has basically spent your entire life developing and curating a specific style, and that style has a name like Art Nouveau or abstract art or concept art or monochromatic illustration, or
you can grab that with a keyword.
Exactly. You can grab that with a keyword and possibly all the way to the extent of naming a specific artist. where the AI is now going to approximate that artist style and then make something that looks like that.
Okay.
So, fine. If you are just a dude or a lady or anybody in between who is using an AI image generation software to make stuff and go, hey, isn't this cool? And you share it to your friends, that's fine. But as soon as you start taking those things that are borrowing from the zeitgeist of artistic history throughout the human age as it exists on the internet, and you use it for a commercial product, that's when I think things start to get a little bit hairy.
Is there not a degree of, if the AI system and the software that's been developed itself is taking the stuff that already exists and recreating, reapplying, reimagining, like, where does it cross a line from being something that is new and being something that already exists? And who's to say that, like, I could look at any of these artists that you admire and that you imitate, and I could begin studying and spend the next 5 years of my life perfecting their art style as well. So it's not that their stuff is off the line. It's that you're frustrated with the ease and accessibility of it now, how simple it is to then imitate that.
I just wish that people would stop identifying it as art when art is something that has to be worked towards by a person with a singular vision.
Why? So I've always been the type of person that would go make fun of. I would go to museums that had the New Age abstract art, the like toilet in the center of an open floor, and I would make fun of that. Right? That's always been my model.
But you didn't have that idea.
Have the idea of making fun of it?
No,
or
you
have
didn't.
The idea
You
of
didn't
putting
have
a toilet in the center of the floor.
You did not have the idea of being an artist who worked yourself into the circles that allow you to get a gallery space.
Sure.
Get that gallery space, and with full control over what was done with that space, decide to have a commentary about the art world.
Okay, I understand that.
I can't speak to the exact things that you're talking about.
But my pushback on that is, at some point, art does become controlled by the viewer more than it comes be controlled by the creator. And you're arguing from a position that says this is not art because the artists themselves did not put in vision and time and energy into the creation. But at a certain point, if I look at this image, so I pulled this up.
Looking.
Last selfie ever taken was the cue word for this series of images. I saw it shared all over Facebook. Let's see if a few more pop up here. If I look at this and I think that some degree of this is artistic or says something about human existence or a commentary on life or relates to people, this went viral for a reason. It went viral because something about it was evocative enough that it made people want to click and read the article. It was evocative enough that I remembered it to bring it up in this conversation. Does that not, because of the viewer's perspective, then start translating into art, whether or not there was an artist that handcrafted it?
I suppose you have a point, because at the end of the day, a perfectly grilled chicken breast and a highly processed chicken nugget are both made of chicken.
Sure.
And in this case, to me, this is a chicken nugget. What
if I created this same image with
traditional media?
Years of skill and energy? Because this is something that maybe someone would create. Yeah. This is evocative of like The Road by Cormac McCarthy.
Sure.
Something that both of us would say is like, if you're familiar with it at least, would say that like that is a artistic expression. Like that is someone that put passion and soul and storytelling and energy into this thing. And a lot of the imagery from like what that book is, or a lot of imagery from like what that movie then became, feels similar. It doesn't feel so different.
I'm not going to sit here and say that image would not pass. Okay, it passes. I think it's provocative. It definitely has something to say. However, unless you tell me a human being made that, it's cheap because it's too easy. Look, I'm probably approaching this from one side of things, and that's the side of somebody who has cloistered themselves in art in order to insulate themselves from the outside world. There are different reasons why people get into art, and a lot of the times it's because they want to feel special about themselves. They want to feel special.
It's an expression.
Yeah, they want something that feels like it belongs to them. And for people to say that they're going to type 6 words into a prompt and then produce an image that is art, I think is incorrect. However, with that being said, I do grant the caveat. Again, in the indie board game space, there are a lot of creators who want to have a game that has evocative images that will work, that will fit theme. Now, will I buy the game? Maybe not. Probably not, because I'll look at it and immediately be able to clock it as AI-generated art. And to me, that feels, I'm sorry to say, a tad bit lazy.
So, on something like this...
Yes.
Would you clock this immediately as AI-generated?
Can you zoom out, please? Immediately, no.
Okay. So this is one of the things that this conversation has spawned from, right?
Not immediately. Upon further examination.
You might. Here's an article. I remember this article as well. AI-generated picture won an art prize and artists aren't happy.
Whoop-de-doo. There's a bunch of art judges in Colorado who don't know shit.
But what I'm saying is like, at a certain point, this conversation does start bridging from the definition of like what is and what counts as art over to this exists. So what does this now mean for the art world? And what does this now mean for our industry and the board game world?
I don't think we know for the board game world.
Because there's two sides to it.
Well, again, I'm not going to put up an argument that there's an indie creator or anybody who's lacking in funds who wants to have a beautiful visual package.
They might be able to do something really cool.
They could do something really cool. But here's the question. Are they going to be able to tie theme and mechanism into the visual identity of the generated images that they create? Mm-hmm. If they're able to do that seamlessly, and I've had a bunch of people in comments and conversations that I've had about AI art where I've expressed these views also very candidly, where they're just like, yeah, you're probably right. Artists and maybe even just people in the board game hobby would be able to look at this stuff and clock it as AI-generated art, but the normal consumer definitely won't.
I think the consumer is kind of dumb. I'm one of them, right? I am. But so I heard a commentary just recently, just this last week, and I forget the exact lesson that it was telling, but it was a commentary on someone who was listening to an orchestra or recording an orchestra. And a beautiful rendition, tons of different symphonies and parts that go in, like 13 violins were playing. And at the end of listening to the rendition, this person who had mastered mastered the art of conducting, mastered the art of orchestrational performance. When asked about it, his initial comment was that concerto was written for 13 violins. It sounds like there was one that was missing. And they did the research and they checked the recording, and sure enough, on the day that recording happened, one of the 13 violins that was supposed to be playing in the background of that concerto, one of the people called in sick and they couldn't find a replacement for it, so it played forward with 12. Mm-hmm. And so this masterpiece, to someone who was wizened in the skill, who knew the ins and outs and what it was supposed to sound like and where that one little melody was supposed to be, was able to pick up on the fact that there was a missing seat. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But to everyone else,
it sounded great.
It sounds amazing.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm the idiot here. I'm the person that looks at some of this stuff and thinking to myself, that's evocative, or that's beautiful, or that doesn't speak at all to me. The same way that the toilet in the middle of the art museum didn't speak at all to me, but to some people it might have.
Well, it's commentary, and again, artist subjective, but one thing that
I could let's take it away from the toilet. I mean, the black dot in the middle of a white frame.
You can take a giant 8x8 foot canvas and just put white texture on it.
Sure.
Objectively, it is a canvas of white.
Yeah.
But there are choices being made. There is restraint
being
exercised.
I know none of them because I'm an idiot consumer.
No, well, I mean, to a certain extent,
but really,
you have an artist side because I know you did photography and video work before you got heavily into growing this channel. So you know that you're trying to hit certain lights. You're looking for certain angles. You're trying to beautify people and capture a moment.
When you describe all that to me, I can agree.
Okay.
When you set a white canvas in front of me,
fine. And here's what I will say. It doesn't matter how well you articulate the prompts for AI art. AI art is never going to have a visual identifier of giving a shit about your world. If you're a storyteller, if you are a game creator who is trying to create an experience that evokes specific things, that level of care, that level of attention cannot come from a thing that just grabs all of the cultural images from just the ether and bumbles it together into this vaguely deformed, like, sort of set up image and have it be cohesive. It's not going to fit. If you look at a game like Root with art by Kyle Farron,
sure,
instantly identifiable.
Sure.
It's got brand strength. It sells the world. It does everything for what Leader Games is doing. Mm-hmm. That will never, ever, in a million years, be accomplished by AI art. And that, to me, is the difference. When you look at an artist like Frank Miller, when you look at an artist like Jim Lee, I come from a comic book background, so these are the names that I'm going to drop. But AI art is not going to have that instantly identifiable visual style. But you could put Jim Lee style art, Batman, into an AI, and you'll get some stuff that would maybe pass, but it's also going to have like arms coming out from like weird areas.
Sure.
And
it absolutely does have that. Yeah,
capes that kind of look like legs. And I've seen, there's a buddy of mine who's been doing stuff where he's trying to create X-Men covers featuring his favorite characters. So that he did a series of covers using AI generated images of just Gambit and Jubilee. And were they interesting? 100%. Could you sort of see those characters in it? Sure. But this doesn't really speak to the actual problem I have with AI art, because I think eventually the technology will come to meet to the point where you won't be able to tell the difference at all.
Yeah.
It'll be completely seamless. That doesn't really freak me out, because I think about, the fact that I still play cassettes, that there is a huge community of people who enjoy records.
But does it expire the artist, or does it, in my mind, kind of knock out the middle guy, and then exemplify, because it lowers the bar for accessible art in an important way. It just like photography. A panorama, it lowered the bar for accessible panoramas. Mm-hmm. In a way that, like, now the person that had the skill set of making beautiful landscape panoramas, it really didn't matter anymore. Right? Technology always kind of does that. It's always kind of chipping away at the people that are like, it's always kind of like closing the gap.
You have to embrace it, right?
In a way. And so, like, I don't feel like, I didn't see Photoshop being able to autocorrect images pretty darn good as a threat to my career as a photographer.
I'm not saying
because my career as a photographer still added just what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Still added the heart, the soul, the interaction beyond the camera, the smile that I could get from the person, the evocative wedding photo, the moment where I tweaked the difference between light and dark or added blue into the shadows. Mm-hmm. Those were decisions that were made into the artistic style of what I created. But it did mean that there was more people that could take pretty darn good pictures with their cell phone. And so there was more good photography around, and they didn't need me as much in certain applications. But I don't think this is actually a threat to the true artist. I think it's a threat to the people that dabble. But I think it might be a boon to the true artist.
Well, it certainly could be a tool, and I've seen a couple artists do some things where they're like, there's an artist that I really like named John Sumrow, who I see doing the rounds on social media. And he did something very interesting where he took a prompt that was like Cobweb Skull Castle Mountain. And the image like included all of those elements, but it had sort of this messy sort of hodgepodge, AI driven sort of...
The tropes that you kind of see all the time.
Yeah, just like things that were sort of swirled and almost...
One arm like this.
Yeah, some weird stuff. And what he did was he took that image, he dropped it into Procreate, and then he altered it. And tweaked it and added details, and then what he rendered out of that initial image was something totally cool, totally awesome. And if it saves you time, like I take shortcuts. I mean, every artist who's working professionally has to take shortcuts because time is at a premium, and you're trying to maximize your time to create the best product you can. Mm-hmm. And I would never bemoan the practice of taking AI generated art as a point of inspiration. Like if I wanted to do some character creation exercises with a cyberpunk, steampunk sort of aesthetic, and I was like, okay, I want a archer, thief, steampunk, cyborg, and I plug those words into an AI, and
it creates the artboard for you.
Exactly. It creates the artboard. It creates a character that I can go, oh, cool, all of these elements, I would have never thought of that. These are all these weird sort of elements that is just being randomly compiled.
Now let me make
I'll refine it. Yeah, I'll turn this into a cohesive image. That part makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I get that. Then it's a tool.
So, should... I maybe not should, but like... I think at some point, an indie publisher is going to come out with a game that
waiting.
That is solely...
I am waiting.
That is solely AI.
Yeah.
And
not the design.
And I want to be on the side of championing them. If it looks good, if the design's good, if the gameplay is good, of being like, this is cool, this is weird, this is unique. But you're kind of coming from the side of, like, as a working artist.
Is it weird and unique if a computer makes it?
I don't know.
You don't know. Don't you want to know? When you look, shouldn't you know?
I think it depends on how it's made, but I don't know that I can always, as a consumer, tell the difference between the two. And I do think there's something fascinating about the fact that a computer can generate things that are interesting.
Doesn't the visible representation of love and care and experience translate?
Sometimes. And then sometimes it's just like
sometimes it's just work.
Sometimes it's just work. Sometimes artists aren't my style. Sometimes they kind of suck.
That was something I was thinking
sometimes
about.
10 hours it's kind of meh, man. It's kind of all right.
I was actually thinking about that. Is like, okay, if, what's the guy's name? The Migos?
Yeah.
Okay. Does art on some great games.
Sure.
Not my thing.
Okay. I love his stuff.
Great.
Yeah.
I just received a copy of Paleo Americans. What's it called? Endless Winter.
Okay. Yeah.
I just got a copy of Endless Winter Paleo Americans. It's got the Migos stuff all over it. Mm-hmm. Okay. If you are okay with the idea of AI art being your artist, as in every game that gets created is the AI artist, that's what you're looking at.
I don't want every game though. What I want is
not every game.
I want
see what I'm
saying?
Like that's the artist.
I want the refined, beautiful, noticeable, heartfelt artwork that's done at the high end to be there. And then the people that are like indie pubs that are putting like, $1,000 into their art, and they don't have the skill themselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like more like 10 grand.
The people that hired
it's a lot more.
But I'm saying like legitimately, the people that hired a neighbor boy down the street that are there, and they just, it's not their fault. They just either don't have the eye, they don't have the sense, they don't have the experience, they don't have the skill, they don't have all the resources that it takes to get quality artwork. Mm-hmm. I kind of don't hate the idea of them being able to use something that is cheaper, more accessible, and arguably produces more evocative stuff.
Maybe if it's more evocative.
I said arguably.
Yeah, arguably.
Yeah, it depends on how they refine it, but
yeah,
I kind of don't mind that.
If you're watching and you have a game design that you've been busting your buns on and you're ready to basically throw it to the wolves and see if this AI art package stuff will fly, I think that you might actually have a solid marketing gimmick on your hands.
Yeah,
because
So here we are.
Is this the comic?
Yeah, people. Well, this isn't a comic. This one is Art of the Order of the Tormented Souls. Mm-hmm. It's only raised $5,000. It's only got 97 backers. I'm not doing that, and it has 0 seconds to go. So it's closed. It's not. We're not here to beat up on anyone. But let's take a look at what they're sharing and showing off, because this is from their perspective, the best that they came through, right? So it looks like it's religious in nature. It looks like they're trying to so here you have a very classic nunnish, it looks like they sourced Angelina Jolie and then mucked up her face a little bit.
Yeah, there's a bunch of other stuff going on too that doesn't signal anything because it doesn't come from anywhere.
Yeah. We have some angels there. Let's see. There's
you can't implant subtext or any sort of direction or intention with this.
Its sense of Satan or hell.
That's cool as fuck. This is awesome.
Cool. This is the first one that I think is interesting.
That's really cool. If that was on a metal album cover, I would immediately listen to it. I'm not even gonna lie. I can't.
But that's the first one of the set.
I don't immediately clock. If you told me an artist made that, I would believe you.
Okay. So that's the first one of the set that I think is something unique or different. And it kind of is embracing the weird, twisted macabre that AI art currently does.
It's got some crazy Akira-style body horror and a shadowy figure on the side. I mean, it's doing all these grimdark things that I absolutely am into. Is that a pregnant devil? What's going on, dude?
I can't really... It's just... That's a skull, I think, in the center of the belly.
That I actually
but this one's cool.
I do kind of vibe with that. I mean, yeah, I don't know. In the board game space, I see these comments that are along the lines of like, "Hey, I'm so glad AI art is around now because I don't have to spend $10,000 on an art package."
I've seen a lot of posts like that, and I'm wondering where it ends up. So here we are with the first AI generated comic book, which is one that it's called Midjourney. So here's the frames that we have.
Well, Midjourney is the name of the software. Did they call the comic book Midjourney?
No, I guess the software is Midjourney.
Yeah, the software is called Midjourney.
So like that's the panels that it has right now. After work, I find myself walking away from the ride stations and going nowhere in particular. So let's see if we can find where we can get more information on this. Because the comic is one that you were like, okay, so this whole thing here, it's called Goats, I suppose. This whole thing is AI generated artwork. So let's take a look at this. Let's work it through.
Let's not touch on the writing. The writing is probably fine. Okay.
We're just going to scour through the artwork itself. That's kind of pretty.
It's fine.
I got low battery. Nice herd of sheep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That feels like AI generated.
It absolutely is.
But I mean, feels more like it.
Well, you can visually identify it as something that's AI generated because it's got these weird anatomy features that don't make any sense.
Yeah.
Hold on a second. I just need to really quickly
keep scrolling. I like some of the landscape stuff.
This is trash. I hate it.
You hate all of it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hate it. And I'm going to tell you why.
Okay.
Because I've made comic books.
Okay.
And it is a trial. It's a test.
Yeah.
I've never done fine art like huge canvas oil paintings. I've done some canvas pieces. Comic books, especially if you're also behind the writing side of things, is just slightly less intense than putting out your own board game.
Sure.
Writing a rule book was one of the most difficult things I've ever done creatively, but making a comic book is right behind it. It's super labor intensive, and all of that care and skill and work is usually visible in a comic book. And when you see that vision just exemplified in the narrative and you see the choices that are being made, that's what makes a comic book special. They do not have control. I mean, they've done a great job of adapting it, but they don't have control over POV angles. They're not thinking cinematically about any of this stuff. They can just type in a prompt and see what happens. They probably had to experiment countless times to get something that they thought was applicable that would work. But you ever seen? There's a cover piece that was done for an issue of Nightwing where it shows Nightwing at the top of a building, and then you see semi-transparent versions of him doing all these gymnastics down to scaffolding of a building where he's fighting thugs, and it basically shows his entire journey down the side of this building.
Do you remember what it was called?
Oh no, I'm sorry. I wish I could. It
was a cover art.
Yeah, it might have been a piece of page work, but I think it was a cover. But when you look at that, like, neat ideas on how you break up frame, like, just the direct influence of the artist just exerting their vision onto the page. With comics especially, it just feels like such a sacred art form. To me, it's sacred. For a comic book reader, it feels sacred. Good on them. I hope they do great and everything, but it's not a comic. It's not a real comic.
So I guess the last part, like, once AI art develops, if AI art develops to the point where it is completely unrecognizable, and it might be within subcategories, it might first be in the grimdark space that both you and I enjoy, the body horror space and stuff like that.
I think that AI generated art lends itself to that particular aesthetic.
Once it can at least exist within the realm of questionability, is it then art?
No.
Still not art.
Not to me.
Yeah.
Not to me.
Yeah. I'm just curious because I want to know what Google says. If I just type in art, what do we get?
You're going to get the Mona Lisa. You're probably going to see some Monet. Think about the artisans and the craftsmen who, like, just... their impact on culture.
Yeah.
Like, the sacrifices they made to have the skill level that they did. If you even look at somebody who did pop art like Andy Warhol, or you look at the weird stuff that, like, all of the abstract artists that just went off the rails and were bucking against convention of what was happening in the art world. I mean, these are people who were part of a movement. I mean, they were sacrificing something. They were bearing themselves, If you have a voice and you're trying to express something, then you're making art. A computer isn't expressing shit. They're expressing what you tell them to express. So it's not art. That's all I'm trying to say, man. Yeah. All these other people have been getting spiky with me on the internet because I'm trying to tell them that is not art. Is it visually pleasing? Is it interesting? Fine.
Yeah, you'll get.
Is it art? Is it art?
Yeah.
I don't think so. Sorry, it doesn't pass the bar. Will AI art ever hang in a gallery? I don't know. I hope not. That would be so sad.
I think we'll see a gallery.
I've listened to AI-generated music.
But anything can go into a gallery eventually.
Sure. That's just relationships. You can tape a banana to a wall.
That's just relationships at that point, right?
Yeah. Somebody definitely did that. Somebody just duct tape a banana to a wall and call it art. They put a placard next to it.
You know why AI art will hang in a gallery? Because one of your abstract artists that wants to make a commentary on the art world will do a gallery full of AI art, and the art piece will be the fact that the gallery is hung AI art, and it won't actually be the AI art itself. Right?
And that is actually good.
And that would be art.
Yes! because it's an individual's reflection on society and the sensibilities they have about visual art.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me. I mean, you have to unpack it a little bit. You have to get into a little bit of an abstract headspace to do that.
Yeah.
But that is still art. I mean, like David Blaine putting himself inside of a translucent cube for 5 days straight without eating. That's performance art. Is it weird? Was I interested by it? Not really. But I think that's what makes the conversation kind of difficult. And I'm not trying to cheapen anybody's choice if they are a up-and-coming board game designer or anybody who is trying to create a commercial product and they're like, well, my solution here is I'm going to just grab all of this AI art and plop it into my game.
It makes it easier.
It certainly does. Does it make it good? I don't know. Make the game, and then we'll find out.
It doesn't make it art.
No. Not to me. And just from me to anyone who's entertaining this, I would follow the project. I would definitely talk about it. I would never spend my money on it.
Yeah, I'm definitely not exactly on the same side as you. I find it fascinating, and if the game looked good and if it looked beautiful, I could care less in some ways.
We were talking about this earlier.
But I'm also the idiot consumer, right?
We were talking about how when the TV came out, everybody said, this is going to rot everybody's brain. This is the devil.
And it did.
And it kind of did,
It did. They weren't wrong.
That same conversation happened around the telephone and the radio. Like, at every step of innovation of people gaining connectivity and people getting more capabilities and freedom, everybody, talked about how scary it was. So maybe I'm one of those people when it comes to AI art,
But maybe you're also not wrong.
Could be.
You might. I mean, I'm not willing to sit here and say that I think you're wrong. I think you certainly come from an opinion and possibly an experience level that I cannot share and the consumer cannot share, which means we cannot understand or agree with you.
That's fine.
When it comes to our decisions, when it comes to our consumer choices, when it comes to where the market actually goes. But that does not mean you're wrong.
Be first to the finish line. I'm saying, prove me wrong, board game designers with a great... If you have a great mechanical design and the only thing holding you back is artwork, roll the dice.
The only person that might be holding the brush in all of this, in my opinion, is the software, is the coder. Is the person that wrote the program.
It could be, or you just have to find that pocket of the algorithm that feeds the art package of your game just right.
I'm just saying, like, the only, like, in my mind, if anyone here was an artist, it's,
You're an artist. You are an artist.
But I'm saying, if anyone in this conversation was an artist, it might just be the person that programmed the software, not the software itself, and not the person entering the cues.
Maybe. And that's another side of it, too, is there are people within the community who are experimenting with this now, who are educating people and being like, if you want to create this particular aesthetic look, these are the key phrases you need to use. You have to experiment with your prompts in XYZ sort of ways in order to efficiently generate the images that you're seeking.
It's cool. That's a conversation. That's all we wanted to have. We didn't actually have this conversation until we got on camera
I'm glad.
So like I was really interested to see where this was going to go, and I had some things that I had some things that I wanted to pull up and challenge you with, and just see where it rested. Thanks for sticking with us. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you've enjoyed this. Let us know. What's your opinion? Is it art? Is it not? Should it be used? Should it not? Like, will it be? Despite what any of us say? Yeah, probably. Maybe. We'll see. We'll see.
We will. In the comments.
Whatever the case. We'll see you next time.
Yeah.
Bye.